Anosh is an acclaimed creative director and educator with more than 20 years of international design experience. Anosh has provided design services for hundreds of clients, including municipalities, government agencies, travel destinations, and educational organizations. His work has earned more than 65 awards in advertising, design, and illustration. As a graphic design instructor at FAMU, his students have won Addy Awards in nearly every nominated category. Anosh believes designers are communicators first and foremost, so he approaches every design project with the communication strategy. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Anosh earned his MFA in media design from Full Sail University and a BS in industrial and product design from The Ohio State University. Welcome, Anosh. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone.
How does it feel to have your bio read aloud? Are you like, wow, I am shocked that I did all of those things? Or are you like, yeah, I remember doing that. I remember doing that. It has been a long career. What's it feel like just hearing that?
Obviously, it feels great. It's about me, but but I mean, it's many years of hard work and effort and collaborations, partnerships, and a lot of memories. So it's always good to hear somebody mention that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. And one little housekeeping thing I like to tell everyone, this is not a place where you just kind of sit and watch me and Anosh be in conversation. This is a space where we are all in conversation. So you don't have to raise your hand or anything like that. If you feel that there's a question or something that you want to ask Anosh, feel free to drop it into the chat or come off of mute and say, you know what, hey, I think I have a question. This is a conversation between all of us, not just between myself and Anosh. So I will get started. How many years have you spent working at HBCUs, just for the record?
I call it 3 + 7, like 10 years, because I
Okay,
was an adjunct and then I came as a tenure track for 7 years
gotcha.
back. So I've been full time for 7 years.
Yeah. And so the first question is just what drew you to these institutions, and how has your work at HBCUs shaped your approach to design education?
Well, it was quite incidental. My wife and I, we owned a salon spa in Tallahassee, and she's a hairstylist. So we had a Nevada salon spa. Some women, or maybe some men would know that. But colleague of mine, his brother, reached out to me and he said, Anosh, you must be great. You need to work with me in photography and this. But I also want you to see if you want to teach at FAMU. I said, really, me teach? He said, I've known you many years. You'll be a great teacher. He was actually the division director of graphic communication at FAMU, Austin Roberts, late Austin Roberts. And he asked me to come and teach, and I'm like, okay. And then he said, oh, wait a minute, you have to do a master's. So I did my master's. I had to have that piece of paper which said I have done my master's. That's hence online master's for that part. And to your second question, it drastically changed my approach. I
Mhm.
came from industry. I worked at Zimmerman Agency, which was the largest PR firm and the third largest advertising agency. I came from Saks Media Group, where I was a creative director. So a lot of work was, how should I put it? Not necessarily most of our clients, or hardly very few clients, were color people, or with diversity background, very, very few. So it was a different mindset. So when I started working, it was just like, oh, okay, I got to do something about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've mentioned in your bio, you have worn many hats: professor, creative director. How do these roles inform one another in your work? Or were there moments in you teaching where your work in industry, I'm sure because it's design, it showed up, but the way that maybe you were on site of a project, how did that kind of show up in your work or leadership as a professor?
I think when I started my first semester, I was very scared,
Mm,
really. Like, I was like, okay, I'm a professional. I know what I do. I love what I do, but teaching is different.
yeah.
Not necessarily an amazing creative director, the most award-winning person and all that can do that. And that's why I was reluctant to join. But as my friend said, no, 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 you have got the capacity, you have the abilities to do that. So my first semester, I was really scared. I'm like, am I even doing a good job or not? And I had a very, very different industry related approach. So it clashed with some of the teaching things or the previous students' behaviors, and they were not accumulated with a different new style of teaching. So there was a little bit of a hiccup start on a lot of things.
Yeah. So what brought you back the second semester or the second year? Because if there were hiccups and bumps in the road, there's opportunity to be like, I don't know if this is a good fit. So I guess what kept you there?
I I honestly, and I mean, a lot of times I'm going to say this thing sounds like cliche, but I did not have a lot of confidence about the students, who would be great or not. What I found out was that, oh my God, these students are amazing. They were so willing to learn, not all of them, but most of them. There's a whole bunch of them that were very, very excited, and I pushed the boundaries and I loved it. And there's one thing I tell my students is that when I was teaching or in my own field, I was doing one design. But when I had 20 students in a class, I was doing 20 design. And that was just so fulfilling in that sense that, oh my God, I'm doing 20 design. Now think about if I'm teaching 3 sections, so it's about 50, 60 designs I'm doing
Yeah.
at the same time, which was very, very challenging, but it was a lot of fun. And that brought me back, and I'm just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do this more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And one of my favorite things that you said during our prep call for this conversation, number one, you could just hear the passion that you have for your students and how you're just, excited for them to succeed. So that was just inspiring to hear and watch as you discussed. But you mentioned that there's diversity within diversity. And I thought that was such a profound point. Can you expand on what that means, especially in the design world and why it's important, or in like even in the education space and why it's important?
I think design, if you want to portray for when you say diversity, I'm like, who is diverse? Are we talking about, black designers, brown designers, Asian, and all that? So we categorizing it in boxes. But then what is black design, or what is brown design, whatever, especially when you're doing through the race spectrum, I think it's all wrong. Uh,
Mhm.
to me, it is the individual and their experience in life. So designers in Chicago would be different than designers in Africa or designers in Asia or other places, different places. And within the cities, they are designers. I know designers who, I know one designer, my colleague from Zimmerman, she still works there. She's an African American. Her brother was the one who in the program. If you look at a design, there is nothing anybody can tell that she is African American or coming from a diverse background. Her work is just professional for the client's needs and everything like that. So I always feel like that within the diversity, everybody is very different. And design is, we can go certain follows and styles. I have a style. I have inadvertently made my students go for that style, but with time I've learned is that I need to encourage the students to do their own things also. And that becomes design as so much diverse within that, that it is really individualistic.
Yeah. And I love a good segue. You set me up for this next question. So thank you for that. How do you ensure that your students feel seen and valued for their unique identities and perspectives? You just were talking about how, regardless of race, there are just styles that are true to like human beings. And so when encouraging your students, again, just how do you ensure that they feel seen and valued for their unique identities and perspectives?
Uh, okay, here's the thing is when I started, as I said, I came from the industry background and the mindset from there. And then when I was giving assignments and work and everything, it was really with that singular mode. And then I started realizing that the portfolio the students were creating were kind of exactly what my portfolio or the way I wanted things to happen. And I realized this thing that, and this is, I'm talking about the first 1 or 2 semesters, where I'm like, maybe because of familiarity. But what I have done, the process is that I tell the students this thing, you have to do three options. You have to do exactly what I'm telling you to do. You must do that. But you are a designer, creative person, so you don't want to stifle it. You come up with your own idea and then show me whether I will like it or not. And then in practically also maybe come up in a third option, which is a combination of both, so that their uniqueness comes in. And talking about diversity and identifying themselves, I think I asked an odd question to a lot of my students, and hopefully so far I've not gotten, in trouble. I asked, how do you identify yourself? Who are you? And sometimes the students say, I am a Black woman or Black man or Hispanic or whatever, somebody want to say that. And I said, no, you're wrong. And the face and expression like, what is he talking
Yeah.
about? And I say that you should say is, I'm a creative person who happens to be a Black woman, or I don't want the students to identify them as only with the diversity or the race or what I mean, I'm not saying don't ignore that, but it's like, no, what is your insight, your core, your brain, your heart? That's creativity. So, right? So identify yourself as a creative person who happens to be this. And it's like flipping the narrative in such a way that it makes them understand about themselves more.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And when we were in conversation, again, just preparing for this call, you talked a lot about the importance of students like branding themselves. And so I'm wondering, why is personal branding so crucial for designers, especially early in their careers?
Uh, and I think goes back to the same thing, is this: every creative person needs to identify who they are
Yeah.
and establish. And then also I tell them, who do you want to be? Where you want to be there. And one of the questions I ask the students, and if there are some of my students over here, they might have heard this question so many times. It's like, I said, what do you want to be? They ask, oh, I want to be this. And it's like, what do you dream of? What is your dream? What is not in necessarily as a career, what is your wish? Get a magic lamp, what are you going to do with that? And that's where the identification or identifying yourself comes in, is that who you are. And then we are all, I've done branding all my career in life, and I was taught in the Ohio State University. I love that we said but it's great because you need to identify who you are, and we are all as ourselves as brands. We are selling what we bring to the table, and if you understand your uniqueness about yourself, that really, really helps you understand and then portray. So you might think I am this, but in 3, 4 years in school, you would realize, oh, wait a minute, I want to be this. So go achieve that, and then you say, I am that. And from beginning, I keep on telling themselves that they are a brand. Start thinking of yourself as a brand. If they think themselves as a brand, then they can try to understand other brands also. Because if you don't understand yourself as a brand, how can you do brand work for anything else?
I love that. I love that. And we've been talking for a while. I just want to ask if there's anyone in the audience so far with any comments or questions for Anosh so far. He said some incredible things already. So just want to create space. Alrighty, not yet. Well, definitely as we continue this conversation, Omar, are you
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was like thinking, no, thank you. And that's it's great to hear what you're saying, Anash. But I'm going to bring the dark side of it, right? So like I see in many of my students, the fear that, they will not have a job, they're already overworked, like they have a second job, their parents already. So I wonder about, the different populations that we have to work with in our workplaces. And I know that in mine, many, struggle, really struggle. And it's difficult for them to like to even dream about who they could become and like try, so they're so scared that they just want to go for the short thing, right? And it's like really difficult in a very short time, like to give them enough strength to like go and try to become yourself. So with that said, I guess the question is, okay, what about the challenges that you have experienced, like this type of situation? If you have, of course, maybe you haven't, but if you have, how do you deal with them? You know, what was challenging in all with students and the person who didn't know how to become, you know, a brain and like, you know, confident? What was challenging for you? How do you overcome it? I don't know. That's my question.
So
I think
much.
it's very interesting. There is, and teaching at HBCU, people can have stereotypes. Students come from different backgrounds, challenging socioeconomic backgrounds to some really well-off families, and all kinds of students are there in the school. So, I don't think there are stereotypes like that. However, the students need that support, coming from a different high school or backgrounds and all that. Um, it is challenging. What I have started doing for last 1 year is that we have about 130 students in our program. So all the new students, I encourage them to come to my office. And if they happen to come for advising or something for a director, I sit there with them almost half an hour talking about them and about what they want and what they are fears are. And normally they would not. They're really shy. They don't want to talk about it. And they don't answer right the questions I'm asking. And it sounds very easy. I'm asking the question more. But the thing is, it is very difficult to get things out of the students, some of them. And some of them know exactly what they want. So I kind of challenge them and agree with them and support them. But it's an ongoing process. There is not like this magic bullet. Hey, I told you this thing and you got it and you are great and everything's going to be great. It is an ongoing thing, and getting the support. The challenge is that very few students reach out and come back and push, or go in that direction. So what I try to do is I've started a mentorship program, and the students are mentoring other students also. So that becomes easier in that sense. Then I don't have to do the heavy lifting. We have a graphic design faculty, which is amazing. We work so well together. I can pick up the phone and tell them, hey, do this for me, do that for me. Like literally they did some things, which normally faculty will say, absolutely not, we're not doing this for you. But they do that. So it's a very, very collaborative atmosphere, which is, I think it's very rare in academia because we have a small faculty, and then I think we happen to have I've been very lucky about it. It's an amazing faculty, but it works with that. So it's the students who help other students. I am trying to help them and encourage them. In Trust me, there are a lot of failures. I feel like I have failed a few students here and there, which I wish I could have. We helped, and a lot of times the reason I'm talking about faculty is that it's not a lone job for me. I can say, hey, what about this student? This is something off, something's wrong, can you talk? Or maybe you are, close up with a person, because I am not that, maybe not approachable to that student. So it is very challenging what you're saying. Yes, it is the dark side of it. But I've taught also in uh, Tallahassee Community College, it's not called TSC. I'm going to keep on remembering that. And there was a huge diversity of population. There were more Caucasian students also. It's a general thing. I think there are some challenges for being a student in HBCU, but a lot of things are the same for students everywhere.
Yes. Oh,
Thank you.
Mark, so much for asking that question. I love the energy that you brought to asking it. So again, just thank you. Anosh, thank you obviously for getting that question answered. And then we have Janine Meeks in the chat who also has a question. Janine, feel free to come off of mute and ask your question.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, so I had a quick question about the DEI situation that has been going on since January. How do you think a lot of those students who are about to graduate will face the market when it comes to working as a graphic designer with these DEI protocols taken away? For example, like with Target, I know there was a situation to where we had an opportunity to have our graphics represented in Target merchandise, but they kind of took that opportunity away from us. So what does it look like now with us about to graduate and wanting opportunities like that?
I think it's a very, very important question, Janine, but it's very difficult time for a lot of people in this country. And think it's far more challenging now to find opportunities like that. A lot of companies, bigger companies and multinationals like Target, I understand they have a history of supporting, students and everything. And also with, AAF and American Advertising Federation and a whole bunch of other organizations where they were so supportive, and now they are cutting it back because they are not getting the support and funding also. I have lost, well, at least I've told it's on hold, where we were doing AI research, and myself, I was doing, going to do some workshops and things like that. And that funding has affected me also. So to answer your question for jobs, I think you have to double down. My approach is, and I see one of my professors here, he saw me today. I was not very happy this morning about something, and I was very, very mad, and I just said everything to him, let it out. And I think you might have heard saying this to me, to you, is, go home, hit a wall, cry, whatever you want to do, whatever work, yell at someone, whatever that thing is, and then get up tomorrow and, double down on what you're doing. That's the answer to all those challenges, is that we don't give up. We become bolder and stronger, and we continue and asking support for people who are willing to support. I know it sounds very, I don't know, cheesy, maybe you want to say that, but honestly, that is the way to go about it. I do that all the time. A lot of times I do that. When I go down, I feel down, I feel it, and I'm still feeling it. I'm still feeling what's happening internationally. I've traveled in the world. I am from a different country. I was not born here, and I feel the pain of what's happening in the world also. It is very, very difficult times ahead for us. So job-wise, I would say continue putting an effort. I think hard work will pay off on that, and putting in double down on that, and ask for more help. You see a lot of people over here. You should start connecting with every person you see, so that they can help. You don't know who is here who could help you, or so take your shy hat off and then start becoming more bolder.
Absolutely. Andrea, go ahead.
No, I wanted to piggyback. Thank you, Anosh. I wanted to piggyback, and for the question, Janine, piggyback off of what you were saying, Anosh, and you can imagine. I'm one of the co-founders of the Diversify by Design Coalition, or my organization is, and you can imagine that we too are feeling, from being having a lot of interest in what we were doing to not so much in terms of industry. What we're finding, and it's a slow haul, but I want to throw this out there, that and you've given me a thought, Janine, actually, through your question. We are finding that there are those organizations, both for-profit and nonprofit, that are doubling down, right? That are doubling down. It's like whiplash out there, right? Like there's so much trickle down pain that's happening right now. And so there are those organizations doubling down. It takes longer to find them and nurture relationships with them. However, you've given me an idea about some of the work the coalition should be doing by asking your question, because we, part of our mission is to make those kind of connections. It's one of our core goals of our overall mission, I should say. So I just wanted to piggyback, because we hear a lot about doubling down, and I'm glad Anosh said it, because it's not all gone. It's not all gone. And it's just harder to find. And we will prevail in this. We are hell-bent on keeping this coalition going. And you will find work with a good organization, but it's going to, and Nosh's advice about connecting with everybody in this Zoom room right now, finding out who they are. That's what I've been doing in the background. I'm finding out who everybody is. I have chats going on with several people in here already, who I don't know. So do it. because you will find a path forward. Thanks. Sorry for taking so much airspace there, but I'm pretty passionate about this.
We love it. And it's funny. I've been watching Ingrid. Shout out to you. Your facial expressions are me 1,000%. Like, as I'm like, yes, she gets it. I'm there with you. And there are just so many people on this call who you can just tell are like nodding their heads as Andrea and Anosh are speaking. That the community is there. Be in community, similar to what Ingrid just did. Drop your LinkedIn's, connect with individuals on this call. If we're on this call, it's for a reason, you know what I mean? So definitely make sure that you're leaning on community at this time. Also, students, I'm hearing Anosh say office hours are important. I cannot tell you how many times I went to office hours and my professor was like, what? I'm like, you said to come. And they were shocked that I was there, but also elated that I was there. So if there are any students on, just kind of wanted to highlight that gem in the midst of gems that Anosh just dropped. Um, I'm going to get into portfolios because they're ridiculously important. And I want to make sure that the students that are in attendance just have some notes that they can take away from this, Anosh. So let's talk about portfolios. Are there common mistakes students are making in their portfolios? And also, how can they just do a better job of standing out with their portfolios?
I think portfolio needs to be balanced. There are a certain amount of good numbers from 10 to 20 if you want to do, people have different numbers for that. But you always put your best work. That's the basic first rule of thumb on that. One thing I've learned through talking with a lot of industry professionals, from Florida and nationally also and internationally, people are expecting to see at least 2 case studies of your work. People are looking about your thought process also. How did you come about it? Because, designers nowadays have to be jack of all, they need to know a lot of things, but the only thing that can make you stand out is being creative. That do you have a creative mind? That cannot be taught. And the industry, when you're hiring people, I've worked in the industry also. Nobody has time to help you for that part. They can help you, tell you a program, you can improve on it. You say I'm okay in Photoshop, but I'm an amazing illustrator. Sure, why not? And I can learn more programs. That's fine. Or I know UX. I know a little bit of web design. And you can learn all that on your job. And on the side. But what you can't learn is to be more creative, or how to approach a design problem and how to get to that. And that's why you need to have this little bit of case studies. So people who are looking at your portfolio, they understand what this work is about, how you've approached it. And that is a critical thing in your portfolio. And please double check and triple check, it starts with your resume also. Don't have spelling mistakes. I have done that in the past. I've made mistakes because I didn't check even at this point, so you have to check everything, but show it to other people also. Designers, we creative people are very shy. I am extremely shy. When I was younger, I could barely speak, and I asked my students and most of the students are shy also like that. So we need to network and go out and, be bold about it to show your work, because that's the whole point of doing a portfolio and do it earlier on. I have students who come to me in their freshman and said, I don't have a portfolio. I said, do you have doodles? Do you have sketches? I have a professor here. I saw a sketch doodle on his office. I'm like, let's do something about this little doodle. And, so it's like very experienced professor, but he was doodling, and it helps. So, show your work around. I even show my professional work, design with my experience. I've done that. I show it to my students. A lot of students have critiqued my work and said, no, this is not good. This is the way you should do it. I don't have to do it, but I have my students look at my work and give me feedback, because this is very important. So it's not personal. It is a professional approach. And I always say, it's not criticizing, it's a critique.
Yeah. And I imagine it's got to be difficult, to have someone look at your work and you feel like you've poured your like heart and soul into it, and then those critiques come. Do you have a lot of those conversations? I know there may be some students on the call who may find it difficult to not take it personally, because again, you're pouring yourself into this work and then you're giving it to someone and they're just kind of pulling it apart. So any comments on that? Anosh, do I have you?
Yes. Well, here's the thing is, I have Um, a lot of students who don't come to me because they're scared of that part. I am
Mm.
known to be very brutal and honest. So sometimes, and a lot of times students don't want to come there, and when they come and they realize like, okay, he's tough, but he's honest and he's trying to help. And
Yeah.
that's what they need to take advantage of that also is because as I said in the beginning, I would sugarcoat, I would just say nice and everything like that. And I'm just going to go back to my salon days where we learned about this thing about there were four quadrants of people, different ones, Veda taught us, and it was very interesting. One of the quadrant was, I call it kumbaya, where I'm gonna say, Alicia, you are the best thing. You are so amazing. You're so great. You this. And somewhere in between, I will put the little nugget where there, you need to do this thing and everything. No, don't worry, everything is great. And I started realizing this, that no, they need to, toughen up because in real life it doesn't happen. When you go in a professional environment, the art director, the creative director, your bosses, they're going to be nice and polite, but they are not going to be like that. And they need to face that now while they are in a very close, protected environment.
Yeah. Gotcha. Love that. And you and I have had some conversations just around students and confidence, and that being kind of like a number one thing that you've seen students struggle with is their confidence. And so we've talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to hear more on just what do you think kind of causes this lack of confidence, and how do you help your students build their confidence in their skills?
I think creative people are generally possibly lack some confidence, because we are sensitive people. A lot of them are. But again, some people are coming from different backgrounds, or their parents told them to do this, they're not sure. I mean, there are different various
Yeah.
reasons for that lack of confidence, or they never got that support, or they got it and they're not sure. A lot of times I tell the students, sometimes they start this conversation, I'm not sure if this is good. And I just stopped them right there. I said, how dare you say that?
Mhm.
Oh, no, no, no. Let me be the judge. You don't judge yourself and say this is not that good. Please don't do that. You need to come with confidence. It happened to me. I come from a culture, from Eastern culture, where you don't start saying how amazing this work is. You never do that. That's what I was taught. And my first 3 months at Zimmerman Agency, I did this amazing ad, and the owner, Curtis Zimmerman asked, and he said, Anosh, is this good? Is it great? And I was just like, yeah, it's good. It was like, why did you were reluctant? I was like, yeah, we're good. And I was just like, and it was really amazing. And
Yeah.
and he said, go back. If you are not confident yourself and telling me how great your work is, how do you think I can sell it to the client? So that is something very, very important to feel that you bring that in, and we nourish it. As I said, it's a small program. It's an HBCU.
Yeah.
Students are willing to get the confidence change. Yet, and again, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. And a part of that we talked about is award winning. So you believe that award winning matters. How do accolades impact a young designer's career and confidence?
I think at least teaching over here, I realized that, I come from a background, blah, 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 how amazing I am, or other faculty is amazing. We are still professors in a in a small town, in an HBCU, not SCAD or some of those big design Pratt or Parsons or whatever. People feel like, oh, they're the best and all that. Um, so when we say your work is great or you're getting an A, that's one thing. But in awards, when industry professionals are saying your work is great, that changes the students. I have seen year after year again students who are extremely shy, who couldn't even barely speak. I always give the students example, and I'm not going to mention her name or anything, but she would dirty paper, twiddling something really bad, and barely could speak up. And she won American Advertising Awards local, and then she won a district, also competed at national level. And after 1 year, the class was making fun of me because I must have made some mistake or something ridiculous or whatever, and the class were laughing. And I was just like, and she was sitting in the second row, it's like, how come you're laughing at me? And she said, are you laughing with me or are you laughing at me? And she giggled and she said, Professor Gill, I'm laughing at you. And I loved it. I was just like, oh my God, 1.5 years winning awards. That totally changed the student because she was laughing at me and making fun of me. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing, like the change that happened. So yes, the awards are very important and students should compete. And again, don't judge yourself, show it to professionals, show it to your professors, show it to other industry people and see if this is good enough or not. And if they critique, make it better.
I love that. I love that story. And again, I'm going to ask, are there questions that individuals who are currently in attendance have? We've talked about portfolios, branding, confidence, lots of different things at this point. So I'd love to hear from anyone who's on. Feel free to come off of mute with any questions or just comments you'd like to add. Ingrid, for sure.
I have a question.
Oh, let's see. Ingrid, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just saw you go up Atlantis. So we'll have Ingrid, Atlantis, and then Victoria.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. I wanted to make a comment about winning awards. I have dealt with a good number, not as many as faculty member, but I have dealt with a good number of college students. And I just came off a trip to Texas where I met with students at SMU, University of Houston, Texas A&M, anyway, 5 schools. And one of the things that I noticed, so they're all engineering and architecture students. If you want someone to look at your portfolio, go to a school of architecture. Not only do they have to suffer a lot of crits in their studio for, I mean, that is their job to put themselves into their work every semester and be told, you're a pile of crap. So that's what happens there.
Yeah.
So if you have a school of architecture on your campus as a student, I would encourage you to go there. They have no investment in your stuff. They don't know who you are. So they're just gonna tell you. And they have an eye. They have that is
Yeah.
what they are trained to do, is to have an eye. Now they're not graphic designers and whatnot, but they care about how things look very much. Very
Yeah.
much. Architecture students and architect professionals care how they look. The other thing I wanted to say is that I personally care who's giving the award. So, for example, there's a difference for me between an NAACP award and a Grammy.
Yeah.
Now, like, I care who the audience is too. I
Yeah.
care who's giving me the award. So it's just like praise or somebody makes a slight or a comment that isn't kind. I consider the source. So just
Mm,
consider the source. If you
yeah.
really don't care who that is or that organization, you don't need to be blessed or cursed by them. Hey, water off ducks back. So sometimes that can give confidence,
Yeah.
a boost that's needed. But sometimes you really just need to think about, do I actually care?
Yeah. I love that, Ingrid. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate it. And Atlantis, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, I had a question
Yeah.
for Professor Gill. How do you brand yourself like in your portfolio without it being too jumbled if you specialize in more than one thing?
Mm,
Good question. I mean, I think what you need to find out what you want to be or where you want to work, and what is close to you. Uh, but remember I said also before, it's like you gotta show a variety of things you can do also, but you gotta put the passion or the drive you have or what really speaks to you, the work as foremost. Um, you know, uh, we were talking about awards also, or some important client maybe, but don't put a work which is from, let's say, I don't know, Club Med or Nike or Aflac you've done, and they were really, really bad designs, be careful about that. You can mention the name somewhere, but don't show the work about that. Leave that for the interviews. But show the work that you relate to it more. And again, when you're putting your work, asks the right people the right question also. I mean, Ingrid had a point where, who's saying what is good or not. So you need to judge that part also, and see who that is coming from. My wife is a good judge of my work, but she's not a designer. So I always put in the category about wife, for 28 years, but this, designer, this, my son, this, like there are different categories and, target audiences that will work. But, through the years, she's learned to be much better critique of the work, So think about what you want to do, and then ask questions to other people and say what they think is best also.
Absolutely. And Victoria, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much tonight for being here for Professor Gill. I'm a big fan of FAMU, and it's a wonderful department that you guys have. I have a lot of friends who graduated from there who've done graphic design. And my question is, and I graduated from Clarion with a degree in communications, a BA in communications, and I'm not like artistically inclined like in that way, but just in my field where we deal with writing and PR and all of the things, we're having big debates right now about AI. And so and I work for a school district in Philadelphia. And so a lot of the students will come by and visit me from places that have like programs that have graphic design courses. And AI is a big debate right now. Those of us who are millennials, we grew up with that understanding that tech, having some digital competency is really important to move forward with the future. But now there's that idea that AI, for some people, it's just a tool, but it's also a question of integrity, artist integrity, and stealing from work. So how are you addressing that with your students? And using this as a tool, or if it's something that they should be really using at all in their work, and what are some of the I guess responses to that from students? How are they using it, if they're using it at all? Thank you.
Great question. A lot of nervousness and scary parts to it also. Last summer, faculty, graphics faculty, and we sat there. We came up with a very, very initial initiative that we need to introduce or accept AI happening, and we came up with a very initial plan that certain assignments could be done like this sort of thing, or using that, or identifying that ethics of it, that you say you've used it, things like that. I've since October, I have started doing some kind of background research on myself. I'm part of publishing a paper with AI and ethics also with some of my colleagues, from different universities. And I'm working with some of the students and other faculty also to see where the AI usage is and, the ethics and design is, or what the AI capabilities are also. It is something we all need to understand. And I've talked with, not done a really thorough research, but a lot of people are talking about it or dabbling into it, but I've not heard from anybody they have a specific plan for AI. What I heard from somebody in the industry was that apparently some places in Japan are already categorizing the awards with the AI usage also. And that is something with ethics come in. And I know there's one of the students who was extremely upset last time that she was doing work, creating the tools, and then another person just used AI and the finished work was really good. So the educators are behind in this thing. And that's why we are changing our curriculum and adding more AI in our classes. And next summer with, what do I call myself? Pseudo expert, or kind of mini expert, because hopefully with my research and talking with other people and trying to figure out what needs to be done, we need to get to that point, and things are moving fast. But I do want to tell people that you have to embrace AI. If you don't embrace your history, period, I saw that in the 90s when I graduated and I went back to my home country, and I was working the largest advertising agency, and they had a partnership with the largest agency at that time, McCann Erickson. And I had this Australian creative director come in and said, why are these 20 people sitting here in the studio? You could do all their work in one night. I want to fire them all. And I freaked out. I went to the owner and I was just like, and I told them, learn in 3 months, Adobe program. Well, not Adobe, there were other programs also at that time. Learn PageMaker, Photoshop, and other programs, Quark Express, and so it was like learn them, and some people did, and guess what? In 6 months, most of the studio was fired because it did not make business sense. So we need to embrace AI and we need to be in touch because this is 10 times or 100 times much faster. But at this point, AI for design as such, for my understanding right now, is not very helpful. It is just a tool we can use at this point. It can change.
I would like to jump in on this. I'm part of the same team with Professor Gill, and we designed the guidelines. And Victoria, to answer your question, one of the things we address about AI was the percentage of work created by AI versus the creativity from the students. And it's one of the things that we definitely make sure that in our guidelines, the percentage was bigger from the students' input rather than the tool. So AI is a tool, what we all say, but it requires a certain amount of skills to be able to take some information out. It grabs from a lot of data that is out there, and it creates a very homogeneous work that doesn't really create anything that is, one, very creative, two, that is unique. And so we always try to make sure that students understand that, yes, if you want to apply the tool the way it is, it's going to look like every other, AI generated work. And those are really going to have that or unique personality, unique work that you can create. And the other thing that we also tell the students is you cannot use it as it come out of the box. You got to modify it, you got to change it, you got to put your own stamp on it. And again, keeping that ratio of more input of the student versus the tool itself. And so we definitely in our guidelines for our classes is we make sure that they understand that part of the creativity cannot never be overlooked. So it's important for them to understand that your input as an individual make it unique, it'll make it creative, it'll make it personal, and the tool will not do it for you. And so that's why you have to use it sporadically, but we are allowing it, and we use it in many areas on UX design, the courses that I teach. We encourage them to use because there's a lot of writing that our graphic designers do not have, training in. Technical writing is very difficult. If you're dealing with branding, if you're dealing with PRD documents, if you're dealing with problem, statements and problem solving issues, if you're doing research, parsing through data for interviews. And all this, AI can really help you to create a more technical language. But and when it comes in the end, we definitely want to make sure that they are on top of this information, and is not the information is on top of them. It's not the tool doing the job for them. They're using the tool just to perfect and make better their, skills.
Thank you for adding that in. And I just have to mention, we are getting down to time. We're going to ask one more question. But before we do that, I just have to say that the AIGA, especially as we're in the midst of talking about awards and all those things, the AIGA Design World Studio D by D scholarship application is open. The scholarship application is open. So if you are in contact with students, if you are a student, we are encouraging students to apply to this scholarship. The scholarship is in its 30th year. The application opened and the deadline is April 21st. So we have time. The scholarship benefits look like financial awards, professional recognition, similar to what Anosh was just speaking about, networking opportunities, community support. And so I am going to drop the link in. I just dropped it. We definitely encourage you, if you know a student, if you are a student, to share it or apply to the scholarship opportunity because it is awesome. And if you have any questions at all, myself or Matthew, who is also on the call, is more than welcome to give you any assistance you may need. So I just had to plug that while we were on the topic of awards and all these things. And so again, thank you to everyone. The last question that I will ask you, Anosh, is that as someone shaping the next generation of designers, what is one piece of advice you'd give to students and early career designers navigating today's industry?
I think one thing is believe in yourself and hard work. You need to have the passion. You cannot let go of the passion and the drive, no matter what happens. That is something universal, and that's in you. If you have that, I'm gonna finish up with my high school motto was perseverance. Perseverance commands success. You keep on doing it, and great things would happen. And you have to start first with believing in yourself. You have to be in a happy state and in yourself and that, and then start doing that and keep on pushing yourself, because if not today, not tomorrow, something will great would happen. And fate, destiny, your religious God, all those things come in play and make amazing changes which you don't even expect would happen.
Absolutely. I love that. And what's that high school motto one more time? Perseverance.
Commands success.
I'm writing that in my journal tonight. I don't know about y'all, but I needed to hear that. So thank you for sharing that, Anosh, so much. And that's it. Is there any other comments, concerns anyone has? Andrea, I didn't know if you were about to add something or not. Okay, awesome. All righty. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Before we
It's a
wrap up,
heartfelt thank you.
yes, absolutely. Anosh,
And
this was
especially you,
amazing.
Anosh.
Absolutely. And to all the students, thank you so much for joining, and all the individuals who attended tonight. Thank you. I encourage everyone all the time to stay connected with Diversify by Design. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn as Diversify by Design. We're also on Instagram at DXD Coalition. Also visit dxd.design to learn more about our upcoming events. We just released our entire spring AMA schedule. I'm going to drop the link for our next AMA, which is going to be hosted by myself, but I'll be speaking with Jasmine K. Burton, who is a social innovation strategist, an impact entrepreneur, and an equity-centered designer. She's amazing. If you have not heard about her, definitely look her up on LinkedIn. She's super awesome. So definitely excited to be in conversation. Anosh, thank you so much. This was great. And again, just everyone who came, we appreciate you. Keep up with us. If you know a student, if you are a student, that scholarship link is so important. You can find out more about it on our website. Definitely encourage the students in your life, the design students, to apply to that scholarship. So thank you again, Anosh. It's been amazing. Thank you to everyone who attended.